Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast that delves deep into the ever-evolving world of property. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I have an inspiring guest who embodies resilience, dedication, and a passion for the property industry. Joining me is Claire Bates, a seasoned professional with over 12 years of experience in the field, whose journey is as fascinating as it is motivational. Claire's story is one of transformation and determination. From her early days in hospitality management, where she honed the customer service skills that would later earn her numerous industry accolades, to taking a bold step back into academia to pursue a master's degree in building surveying. Her commitment to education and passion for historical buildings and sustainability has not only enriched her career, but also set her apart as a leader in her field. But Claire's story extends beyond her professional achievements. As a military wife and mother to a son with special needs, she navigates the challenges of balancing family and career with grace. Her advocacy for flexible working environments and living in the moment is a testament to her strength and resilience, inspired by personal experiences that has shaped her outlook on life. Today, we'll explore Claire's unique insights into the property industry, her journey back to university, and how her personal life influences her professional world. We'll also discuss her future aspirations, including her path to becoming a full member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Welcome, Claire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful intro.
Well, it's all true. It's all true. So can you start by telling me a little bit about your journey from hospitality to property?
I worked as a waitress sort of from about the age of 15, and I loved working in hospitality. You know, you meet such a variety of people, and I just loved that side of it. So I went to university after my A levels, and I studied a degree in hospitality management for 4 years. I went on to work for a very large pub company as an assistant manager, and yeah, I just absolutely loved what I did. But of course, the hospitality industry is very hard. You know, if my manager was away, I was clocking up 90-hour weeks. You know, of course, the shift patterns are just crazy. You know, I could be working until 3 a.m, be back up at 6 a.m. And of course, when you're then married, trying to start a family, those hours they don't work anymore. I decided to leave that industry, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I'd always been one of those sorts of people that I love looking on Rightmove, loved looking at houses, and just, you know, fascinated by buildings. And I had an opportunity, came up with just a local estate agents. I say local, they're very, very big, and I worked for their head office that was in our town where we lived at the time. And I worked there for a couple of years, dealing with sort of properties going onto the market. One of the ladies I worked with then went to work for a managing agent, and I, you know, sort of was getting to the end of maternity leave, and she said, "Why don't you come and work here?" And it was really bizarre, because although I sat speaking to people about their leasehold properties and asking what their service charge was and what their ground rent was, I didn't know that this industry existed. I had no idea that behind me asking, you know, what is your service charge, that somebody, you know, producing that budget and working in that industry and maintaining that building. And yeah, so I said, yeah, great, I'll come and work with you, and the rest is history, I guess.
Oh, well, so what made you then do the master's degree in building surveying? Building surveying is a separate industry to block management. So what sent you then that path?
I think I've always had a real passion for learning. You know, give me a course, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. It was actually an interesting story. So about 3 years into my block management career, I went on site with a contractor, and we were looking at what we thought was a relatively simple issue. We had an undersized lintel above a balcony door, and it needed to be replaced. Pretty simple, everyday works, nothing out of the ordinary. And we had the company come in to prop the balcony so we could do those works. And when we removed the boarding around the balcony, we discovered that the balconies on this 12-year-old building were absolutely rotten. You could put your fingers through the wood. Builders had used softwood joists externally for these balconies, and of course, they just weren't going to last. And what should have been a really simple job turned into something quite complicated, where I was on site with surveyors, structural engineers, and contractors, and they were all stood talking. And what I realized really quickly was I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. But it was me that had to relay all of that information back to my clients. And I thought, if I don't understand it, how can I possibly speak to the client and have confidence in what I'm saying? So I thought there has to be a way around this. And I sort of started looking and thinking, maybe I could go back and do a master's degree. And I was, I had loads of research to do because I was like, well, my first degree is obviously so far disconnected. Can I even do that? And it transpired that I could. And yeah, in 2017, I enrolled with the University College of Estate Management in Reading and did a 2-year master's degree. A challenge, of course, trying to work around work and childcare and life and everything else that throws at you. But yeah, it was one of the best things that I've ever done. I absolutely loved it.
Well, that's incredible. And I think any of your clients that are listening to this, to know that you put that much dedication and commitment to your job, so you have that knowledge to relay back to them, I think that's exceptional. So good for you. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. You know what I mean? Sometimes people say good for you. You think, oh, good for you, pat on the head. But no, I don't mean that. So in terms of customer service, then, as we've been talking about, I do know that I was speaking to somebody the other day randomly, and they said they take on a lot of their PM or their property management staff from the hospitality industry because their customer service is so exceptional. Yes. So do you think that has influenced your career in property or set you apart from other people maybe?
I think when I've personally been recruited for teams that I've worked with, I've always had this ethos that you can't teach somebody to be good with people. And everything else surrounding leasehold, whether it's legislation, it's the law, it's how to read the lease, run an AGM, I can teach all of that, but I can't teach somebody to be inherently good with people. So I think if you can do that it's just the main focus of our industry. You have to be good with people. And I think working in hospitality, I met people from all walks of life, from some extremely affluent people to, some people. I come from an area that's not particularly, economically fantastic. And, I think having that exposure to different people, you learn to very quickly adapt yourself to who you're talking to. And I think that's a skill that's never failed me. It's only helped me in my career.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, and you're right, I've always said that what we do on a day-to-day basis can be easily taught, but the compassion and empathy and ultimately kindness and just understanding people, you've got to get the right person to do the job. But I do find actually that people who are really good with people and very empathetic struggle more in our industry. Yes. Because we're quite sensitive people. Yes. So it's trying to get that balancing act, isn't it? We want people like that to come in because we're really caring and we understand people, but we're quite sensitive ourselves. I mean, I certainly am.
Yes, definitely. I'm exactly the same. And sometimes I think it's difficult, isn't it, to take a step back and realize that whatever's happening, it's not personal. And, people, it is a emotive subject. You are dealing with people's homes. That's their safe place. It's, for the majority of people, the biggest investment they'll ever make in their lives. And, I think it's really different. Sometimes you have just got to take that step back and think and put yourself in their shoes and think, you've got to understand it from their point of view. And I know that can sometimes be, difficult and you don't want to take things personally, but, I definitely can sometimes. I do try to take a step back.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. It's just putting it into practice. Sometimes it's really hard, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Oh, but so over the past 12 years that you've been in the industry, what are the most significant changes do you think you've seen?
And it's probably the same for the majority. The obviously the increased focus on fire safety. If I go back to when I was first in block management, I suppose you got your fire safety report, and words like compartmentation, for example, were just not a thing.
Mm.
I never saw that in my early career, or this fire door's damaged, and of course, actually now I look back and I think, wow, that's really shocking, and it really upsets me that that wasn't a big thing, because of course it's vital. So yeah, I think for me that has to be one of the main things. And I think also sort of engagements with leaseholders. I think leaseholders are becoming, they are more savvy, and there's a lot more out there in the media now, and people want to take an interest in what they've bought. And and I think that now, property managers, you've really got to be on top of your game. You really need to know what you're talking about,
Mm.
because the leaseholders aren't far behind you. They're
Yeah,
definitely, they know what they're talking about as well.
they
So yeah,
absolutely do. Yeah,
yeah,
and which is great, but I
it
also
is.
wish there was not from their point of view, but there was more education available, before, say, a first-time buyer buys a flat. By the time it gets to us as managing agents, it's done and dusted, and they've signed the lease and they've signed for the property, and everything. And then they're like, "What do you mean there's a service charge?" And nobody told me about this levy, or that there was major works, and the flat has been completely refurbished, but actually that flat might be refurbished in the last 12 months, but you're living in a grade 2 listed building that's built in the 1800s.
Yes.
For me, it's a bit of a passion of mine to try and get that education out there, before people sign on the dotted line. I'm not sure if estate agents are going to like me very much. And I'd love to, if anyone's listening, I would love to speak to estate agents about their point of view, because I just feel like there's just not a lot of information out there for when people are going through that buy-in process.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, education in our sector as a whole is such a soapbox topic for me. And I have the exact same, we've all got to take our role in bettering our industry, bettering the information that's out there. And I agree, estate agents, they also need to know what they are selling. And we've all got that responsibility to make sure that people buying know exactly what they are buying into. I use the example of where I live. We have, I live on a small, estate. It is just houses, but we have a very strict covenant within our lease that, you're not allowed to park on the estate roads. And it is a huge problem, just like anywhere else. And I know the agent that manages our estate, and they sent out a letter, and people on our we have like a Facebook group, and people were up in arms that they couldn't park on the road because they didn't realize that that covenant was within their TP1. And that's why have those things not been pointed out at the point of sale? That needs to be a thing.
Yeah.
It
Oh no,
really does.
I completely agree. It feels like that we're always the bearer of bad news, because by the time it gets to us, we're the ones who have got to implement those restrictions, and deal with the covenants that have been being breached, and that sort of thing. And it does get, going back to my, the sensitivity of me and other people that I know in the industry, when you're then, trying to, enforce something, and then you just get a bit of a battering back. It's really, really hard, because you're only doing your job at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, but thank you for your thoughts on that. And if you don't mind, you did share with me about losing your father, which I'm
Yes.
very, very sorry about. I've lost mine also, so I know how tough that is. Speaking about your personal experiences around that, how did that influence your approach to life and career?
It had quite a profound effect on both me and my younger sister. So my dad was only 59 when he passed away from motor neurons disease. And I think you very quickly realise that retirement isn't promised to anybody. I mean, tomorrow isn't promised to anybody. And my dad had all of these plans for retirement, and he was an avid biker, and he was going to go ride Route 66 in America, and he wanted to go back to Australia, and just all these big plans that I suppose the majority of us do make as we get older. We think we'll do this and that when we retire, but of course, he didn't reach retirement age. And I just learned that you just have to live in the moment. And if you want to do something, just don't put it off. I mean, it had a more profound effect on my sister, who gave up her job, put her house out for rent, and has spent the last year traveling Europe in a camper van. For me, obviously, I've got a husband and a young son. But, it's those things of, I used to be quite an avid saver, very sensible with money, and I still am, but I will take the opportunities as they come and think, well, I can't take any of that money with me when I'm gone. So I'm a collector of memories, not stuff, is what I say.
Oh, I love that. It's presence as in the presence of you and your family, yes, and everything, over presence as in gifts.
Previously I would have always been the one to have the latest phone and the latest Apple Watch and, the fancy brand new car off the forecourt. But now I realise I don't need to spend my money on any of that, because I love the car that I drive, and, I don't go without, but my little boy loves Pink, and I found out that last minute that she was playing in London. And of course, the last minute tickets are just astronomical. And the old me would have gone, God, that's such a lot of money. Can't really justify it. But I just thought, well, why not? And I would spend that amount of money any day of the week to see his face at that concert again. And,
I know.
I will. I think when getting quite deep, when you die, and and you're looking back at those moments in your life, you're not looking at the salaries that you earned, or the mobile phones that you had, or the cars that you drove. You're looking at the memories that you made with your families and friends, and the holidays, the concerts, the trips to Disney and whatever else. That's what matters.
Yeah, I completely agree. I took my little girl to Lapland, UK last year. She's not quite old enough for, well, she probably is, but I don't think she would like the cold to go to actual Lapland. Yeah. But I took her to Lapland, UK, and that was quite expensive for all of us to go. But the look on her face when she met Father Christmas was worth every penny. Every penny. And the pictures and everything. It's just memories that I'll cherish. So yeah, I completely agree with you. But you're a military wife. Your son has special needs. So again, how have those experiences shaped your professional life?
Probably firstly, just I have to be organised beyond organised because I mean, it's absolute chaos. And I think that I probably sit at, my husband can be away for, quite long periods of time. We don't have sort of family and friends in the area. So it is just, me and Mason quite a lot of the time. And of course, I'm trying to balance, building my career and, the house. And we have 2 dogs and childcare, and organisation beyond organisation is probably one of the main things. And I think it has made me really resilient, and sometimes hate the army. Like, they drive me insane, and I could never be in the army, because probably they kick me out on the first day because I wouldn't be able to control what I said.
Wouldn't do as you were told.
Definitely not. They do drive me insane. However, I think a real pivotal moment for me was back in 2020, in January 2020, my husband was deployed to Afghanistan for 5 months. And of course, whatever date in February or March we went into lockdown during COVID, and it was just me and my little boy whilst I was trying to work and home educate. And my son's he's got very severe ADHD and it's being assessed for autism as well. So the level of stress was just unbelievable. But I think it does make you more resilient. And of course, we work in, high stress, high pressure environments as well. So yeah, I think it's really shaped me as a property manager. It's probably made me more empathetic towards other people as well, and sort of recognizing, their stress and, trying to recognize that in my team and, early intervention there and trying to help other people as much as I can.
So in terms of work-life balance then, I'm on the TPI working group, so I'm wellbeing working group, sorry. So I'm very much into making sure that people are looking after themselves. I don't always do it myself, so I completely get that it's not always possible. So how do you balance the demands with everything else you've got going on to try and have a bit of time for you?
Both me and my husband are very, very good at recognizing when the other one needs a break. And that day my husband will say to me, go out with your friends, go and do something. And similarly, I'll do the same to him. And I think probably with work, again, I think this comes back to when I lost my dad. And, before then I would work until all hours and work at a weekend. But once my very strict routine is now that, I'll do whatever work until whatever time I need to during the week. But once I've shut off for the weekend, that is very, very strictly family time. I will not open my laptop at a weekend. And I know that some people will probably be horrified by that, but I think you have got to protect your own mental health. And it's so important to have a rest because, you can't pour from an empty cup. So unless you are, well mentally and physically yourself, and you need that rest, because otherwise, how can you perform to the best of your ability? You just can't. It's impossible.
I completely agree. And at the end of the day, it's what works for you. It doesn't have to be across the board. Like you say, people might be horrified by that. And it might be that, you don't open your laptop all weekend, but an hour on a Sunday evening because you don't want the anxiety of going into crazy emails. If that makes you feel better, then do it. That's entirely up to you. It's what works for you. And I just don't think that, one size fits all ultimately in the whole well-being side of things. You can take bits from different bits of advice and
and I'm sure some people will probably be a bit stricter during the week because come 5:30, 6 o'clock, they've got kids at home and they're commuting back. I work from home quite a lot, so I can work later into the evening, and that's again, that's my personal choice as to how I manage my own workload. And I think you've just got to find out what works for you, but you do need to have that strict time of, I am not going to focus on work. I am going to focus on myself, my family, my friends, whatever it might be that you have for your downtime. I think it's just so important.
And obviously, you're a huge advocate for flexible working environments. And I think certainly post-COVID or COVID lockdowns, I don't think we're quite past COVID in general, but COVID lockdown, I think that flexible working is definitely more prominent in our industry. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I was very lucky that prior to COVID, I'd actually worked from home full time since 2018. So when the world shut down for COVID, it was business as usual for me because it was just another day. But I think obviously in post the COVID sort of lockdown time, employers are becoming more flexible. And I think it's so important to have that flexibility. My view is that, I've worked for extremes of companies, some that are, so flexible and, others where, things are, run quite differently. And I think if you can offer your employees that flexibility, the vast majority will appreciate it and work so hard for you because of what they are afforded. I know for me, that is definitely the case. I am so lucky to work for an employer that is so flexible, that understands my situation with both my husband and with my little boy. And, they know that I will work and do whatever I need to do to get my job done. Is it always during traditional hours? Not always, but they know that I will do whatever I need to. And I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? If you can do your job within those flexible hours, not everybody needs to do a solid 9 to 5. Some
Mm.
people work better at different times of the day. And yeah, I just think that flexibility is so important for family life and, just for anybody in general, really.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly find that sometimes working, I don't know, say 6:30 to 8:30 or something, like when my daughter's gone to bed and it's quiet and there's no emails pinging
Yes.
through, I find I'm so much more productive during that short space of time than I am all day, because I feel like
Yes.
I'm having, got a text message, then I got an email, and then someone's ringing me, and then, something happens from on a personal perspective. Before my grandmother passed away recently, she was in a care home the last year of her life, but visiting her, and I took my laptop and I worked from there, and things like that. But it's just having that flexibility, I think, to be able to do that. And I'm a huge advocate for, as long as your work is done, I don't really care when you do it. And
Absolutely.
as long as the client is updated and expectations are met in that respect, then if you need to do something, then that's fine. If you've got a client meeting, booked in, you go to that client meeting, obviously.
Absolutely.
But your admin side of work, you can be flexible with that as far as I'm concerned.
Sort of, I'm a morning person, so sort of I log on at maybe 7:30, 8, and I love that quiet time in the
Mm,
morning before anybody else logs on, and I've just got that time to focus. It's quiet, the phones aren't ringing, the emails aren't pinging in, and I can really get ahead for the day during that sort of hour and a half. I just think, having that flexibility, you do appreciate it, and you will work hard to prove that you're getting the job done.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a big
yeah,
advocate.
definitely. So in terms of future goals, at the moment you're an associate for the Royal Institution of Charter Surveyors. What are your future goals regarding your APC? And for those who don't know, what is an APC?
So APC is assessment of professional competence. Yeah, I'm only just starting my APC journey. I'm very lucky that a local firm of surveyors to me runs monthly meetings for the APC, and I've been attending those. After I finished my degree back in 2019, I decided that I was going to have a break from
Mhm.
sort of taking on anything educational just for a little while. And then, of course, as it does, life gets busy, and yeah, it just went on the back burner for a little while. So I'm in the process of just trying to push myself forward in that. So, yeah, so I'm just really hopeful that I'll be able to go through my APC and become a full member of the RICS.
Oh, well, I hope to be able to join you in that.
Fingers
As
crossed.
you say, it's trying to juggle everything, especially like previously with like my grandmother's care and having a little one and running a business and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. It just didn't really, as much as I wanted to do it, it was always on the goal list, but never really got round to it. So yeah, I think I'd like to, even if it's next year, and I concentrate 2025 on that. Then maybe I'll join you on that. So that'd be nice. Um,
do.
yeah. So over the next decade, what do you see evolving in the property industry?
It's a really good question. I'm really excited for the development of AI in our industry. Being able to take away those admin tasks from property managers, that can be quite time consuming, with the use of AI. I think that will really change our industry. It will give property managers more time to focus on what is really important, further client engagement, fire safety. And I think, that's obviously, I know that some people think, oh, well, will AI take our job roles? And I mean, that's just as far as I'm concerned, impossible. I don't think you will ever be able to substitute the human eye on a building. and that human interaction with leaseholders or tenants or whatever it may be. Yeah, I don't think you'll ever change that, but I do think that ultimately AI will make our industry far more efficient. And again, looking at out of those traditional office hours, leaseholders don't always have time to ring during your 9 to 5, and maybe they just need a statement, or maybe they just need a quick question answered. And I think if AI can develop to assist with that, then it will make the industry more accessible and more efficient.
Definitely. So if somebody wanted to transition, if you like, into our industry from any other field, not necessarily hospitality, what advice would you give them?
Educate yourself. Find a really good agent to work for. Network, because I have learned so much from so many amazing people that I have met in this industry. And I think people are so willing to help and to dedicate their time. I can remember when I was doing my dissertation, and my dissertation was funnily enough regarding sustainability and how we could make flats in the UK more sustainable. And Jonathan Channing very, very kindly offered to take a look, and gave me some ideas. And I think if you can connect with people like that and learn from them, I think that you could set yourself up for a really successful career.
Yeah, definitely. So I asked this question to most of my guests, or if not all of
Yes.
my guests. Common misconceptions of the property industry. Any thoughts?
I'll start this with a little story. I'm on a Facebook group for new build developments, and a conversation had sparked up over service charges, and there was some really negative conversations going on, and somebody was explaining how they were having a really hard time with their managing agent. I didn't want them to have that negative impression of our industry. And I think it does come back to this, being really empathetic. And I wouldn't ever want anybody to think that we're all the same, and to sort of say, is there anything that I can help with? And like I can't take you on as a client, but maybe I could try and give you some advice, and I could maybe put you in contact with somebody that really could help if you're having such a bad time. And he asked me what I did, and I told him, and he said, why would I want to speak to you? You're just part of the problem. I I actually cried. I was
I would
gutted.
cry.
And I just thought, wow, I was going to sit and give you, my opinions, and try and help you for, wanting absolutely nothing in return. I'm just really passionate about my industry. Yeah, I guess I want to be part of a solution and not a problem.
Mm.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because we have there's so much negativity surrounding our industry at the minute. And I've seen people saying that, I think one of the biggest misconception that I was going to get onto was that we as agents, the service charges increase, and that means that we're profiting. It's we take all of that money, and of course we know that that's not the case. The money's held in trust, and it's for whatever we've budgeted for. And our fees tend to be relatively quite competitive when you look at sort of solicitors, surveyors, etc. And it really upset me, because I just thought, I don't want people to have that impression of our industry, because I think for the majority of us, we are so passionate about what we do. We love what we do. We genuinely want to help people. And I think that those misconceptions, something really does need to happen, so that people realize that we are trying to be part of a solution.
Well done for speaking up, because I'm in some of these groups as well, and I read some stuff and I just think, should I comment? Should I say
I know it's
something?
hard.
You put your head above that parapet, and you just got shot down so
Yeah,
rudely as well.
yeah. And normally I really wouldn't comment, and because I know how things can turn. I've seen it turn, but I just thought, oh, I really don't want these people to be stuck they think that they're stuck, and I'm thinking they're probably not stuck. And everybody deserves the right to have an agent that works in their best interests, and that is there to promote their success of the management company. And I just really didn't want them to think that there was no way out, and that everybody was the same. It was just really disappointing, and lesson learned. I won't,
True,
you know,
true. But I
I'll
think
I'll keep my head down.
oh, that's sad though, isn't it? That you
It
don't feel
is.
like you want to help anymore in that,
In that
scenario.
kind of in that kind
Yeah.
of social media setting.
But he probably wouldn't have
Obviously,
said that to you in person. If you had met
no,
him at
probably
like a
not.
networking thing, or you had met
Yeah,
him in Tesco,
yeah.
I'm sure he wouldn't have been that rude, but because he can do it behind a keyboard, it seems acceptable. But flipping on that then, let's talk about any pivotal moments in your career that has really shaped your path, or something that you're really proud of.
One of my proudest, and probably a real pinch me slash imposter moment, was at the first Armour Race Awards. I was shortlisted for Property Woman of the Year, and I was just in awe of these people that were shortlisted alongside of me. And yeah, I mean, I think it was Emily Gray who
Mm.
won. I thought, wow, these are just such inspirational women. And it was one of those moments where I just thought, wow, I don't know if I belong here at this stage in my career. They were all very high flyers in their respective careers, and I was just a property manager. And it was a real pivotal moment, and I guess one of those moments that really really motivates you, because you think, wow, I can do this. I can really build a career, and really push myself forward here. So yeah, it was very motivating.
That's incredible, by the way. And you don't need to feel imposter syndrome at all. I personally think that's a completely made up term anyway. So made up by a
Maybe.
man, probably. No offense to the men
Probably.
out there. But no, never feel like that, because I think you're incredible. So
Thank you.
please don't
Thank
ever
you.
feel that way. Thank you. But in terms of projects, is there a memorable project you'd like to share?
Back in 2015, I dealt with a flat fire. It was, well, a masonette actually. It was the 2nd of December. I'll never forget it. The call came into the office at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon that there had been a really, really serious fire. And I got in the car and went to site. And I think it was such a sombering moment, because I walked. It was dark, of course, because it was December, and by this point it was nearly 5 o'clock. And I walked through this property where the patio doors had blown out. There was nothing left. It was just horrific. The tenants of the property were outside with the letting agent, and they were distraught. Two of their dogs had died in the
Oh,
fire. And yeah,
gosh.
it was just, they'd lost everything, and it was a poor area, and they didn't have contents insurance. So, they had about 4 young kids living in this property, and they had nothing left. And the letting agent went, "Great, you're here, bye," and they walked off. Where are these people going? And I'm saying to them, "Have you got somewhere to go?" And they're like, "No." I'm like shouting down the street to letting agent and saying, "You can't go. The property's not even secured." And in the end, me and the director ended up. We went to B&Q. We boarded up the doors at the back and secured the property, and helped the tenants find a hotel, that, well, like B&B, that would take them and the 2 dogs that had survived the fire, and the kids. It was horrific. Yeah, just such a pivotal sort of memory that I'll never forget it. And it was awful. I mean, the property was that bad. It took nearly 2 years to refurbish.
Did the
Yeah.
letting agent rehome them?
No, I don't think they did. I think they literally relinquished all responsibility for them. Oh, it was just awful. I just couldn't believe that they were thinking that, I was there, and that would
That
be
was
it. They were
that.
just, yeah, and that's that. Off they popped. Unbelievable, really.
I expect those tenants will forever thank you for everything that you did for them. And they will always remember that as well. As much as it was probably the worst day of their lives, they will remember how you helped them. Yeah, try and keep that in mind. But you've mentioned about technology earlier, but do you think the role of not just AI, but the role of technology as a whole, do you think that's going to change our industry? Aside from people panicking that, they're going to lose their jobs to robots, because we all use it, don't we, every day with the portals and account systems and all that kind of stuff. Do you think there's going to be a change at all?
I think that a really, really good system makes your business so much more efficient. And I think it's things like we are only human at the end of the day. And things like, scheduling systems to make sure that, your AOVs are being checked at the right time and that your insurance reval is being done at the right time and your EICR is being done and things like that. I think that, with the best will in the world, we can't remember everything all the time. And I think, systems like this will ensure compliance for the building, make us more efficient. And yeah, as I said earlier, just give leaseholders more access to things that they may need when we just simply aren't available.
Finally, not that you're done with the industry yet, but what legacy do you hope to leave in our sector?
As I said earlier, I really, really want to be part of a solution and not a problem. I love the industry that I'm working at. I'm so lucky to love what I do. I do recognise that there are some shortfalls in our industry, and I would really love the opportunity to make a difference, to improve customer service levels, to be part of regulation of managing agents. And I would really love to sort of dedicate some time and give back to the TPI and have more involvement in those sort of decision making processes.
That would be incredible, because as I said earlier, I think you're amazing. So how can people find you if they want to?
LinkedIn is definitely the easiest way to find me. Yes.
Great. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes anyway, so people can easily click on that. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And until the next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.